Hey all, it's time for your space report. On the menu this week, we of course have news from Starship SN11 almost ready to fly, Rocket Lab hiring, a new NASA administrator, but also space debris and news from 4 probes orbiting or landed on the surface of Mars. There's a lot to cover, so without further ado, let's start already. On the space industry chapter, a company we are not used to be hearing from. LEGO just announced a NASA Space Shuttle Discovery will be available next month, featuring details never seen before on the previous kits, such as ailerons, landing gear and payload bay, detailed OMS pods and RCS thrusters. The orbiter comes with the Hubble Space Telescope nested in the payload bay and waiting to be deployed by the manipulator arm. The price tag is set to $200, much cheaper than a real space shuttle. Just a little bit bigger is Relativity Space Terran 1 rocket currently under development. The Terran 1 rocket is pretty much entirely 3D printed, which Relativity Space claims will improve safety and construction time by lowering the number of parts. The second stage of the rocket was printed in only 3 weeks, and the motor was successfully tested at the Stennis facility. The rocket will carry 1.25 metric tons to orbit for a price tag of $12 million. The first launch is scheduled before the end of the year. Many small rocket companies are about to launch this year. Tell me in the comments if you want me to do a video about it. Another small rocket is Rocket Lab's Electron, which successfully launched into orbit Tuesday at 11:30 AM local New Zealand time. They go up so fast, the mission put 7 satellites into 2 different orbits, powered by the Photon kick stage. The Photon was then repurposed as a satellite. The second flight of the in-house developed platform is intended as a risk reduction demonstration before executing a moon mission with NASA and a private mission to Venus later. During the live stream, Peter Beck, CEO of Rocket Lab, came to talk a little bit about their future Neutron rocket. The main message is that Rocket Lab is hiring. Around 90 new talents are needed to develop the new reusable launcher. Russian company Roscosmos launched a Soyuz 2.1A from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, carrying 38 satellites from 18 countries, including the first ever Tunisian satellite, Tunisian Challenge 1. The launch was initially scheduled last week, but was delayed due to a failure in the power supply of the launch complex. The launch operations resumed Monday morning and the mission was a success. Inside the fairing was also ELSA-D, a technology demonstrator designed to deorbit defunct satellites and therefore avoid the accumulation of space debris in space. A magnetic docking mechanism will be tested in various configurations. If successful, future satellites could be equipped with this interface and deorbited by this new kind of garbage lorry at the end of their lives. Existing satellites and debris are beyond the scope of this technique though. More about space debris and collision later in the video. Thursday, another mission was launched, this time from the Vostochny Cosmodrome, 6,000 km away in eastern Russia, and delivered 36 satellites for the OneWeb British constellation. Last week, ESA finally officially acknowledged SpaceX prices virtually killed the yet-to-fly Vega C and Ariane 6 non-reusable rocket launchers. To maintain its access to space, ESA has decided to start early studies for a next-generation launcher. 3 separate €500 million contracts for preliminary studies have been awarded to Ariane Group, Avio, and Rocket Factory Augsburg as part of the new European Space Transportation Solution Initiative. The studies will be completed before summer 2021 and operational launch vehicles are expected after 2030. What an incredible pace! By that time Elon Musk might still be living on the Earth. RUAG Space, a Swiss company that amongst other things builds fairing for Ariane 5 and Atlas V, has finally found the cause of 2 fairing separation anomalies that occurred on Ariane 5 lately. Ariane 5 was grounded since August of 2020, but now corrective measures are being implemented and flight could resume in June. The James Webb Space Telescope, Hubble's successor, is to be launched by an Ariane 5 in October this year. Bill Nelson was chosen by President Biden to lead NASA. Nelson is a politician and has exercised various mandates since 1972. In 1986, he became the first member of Congress to travel to space aboard the Columbia orbiter on STS-61C just days before the Challenger disaster. He previously was on NASA's Advisory Council since 2019. The US Space Force has awarded 4 launch missions to ULA and SpaceX. United Launch Alliance will receive $225 million to launch and integrate 2 satellites on Vulcan Centaur, while SpaceX will receive $160 million for 2 other satellites. All 4 launches are expected to take place in 2023. Following SpaceX and other rocket companies struggle to comply with its outdated rules, the Federal Aviation Administration has announced a new set of terms regarding launch and re-entry of commercial spacecraft. Musk famously ranted about the outdated previous system, saying it was slowing SpaceX's ability to rapidly innovate. The new rules are supposed to give more leeway to private companies. For instance, one license could support multiple launches and re-entries at multiple locations, a game-changing innovation that will make this process more efficient. Elon Musk was under attack by Senator Bernie Sanders. The US Senator asked to leave space travel aside and focus on equality on Earth. He also attacked the accumulation of wealth by Musk and Bezos as an obscene inequality. Musk replied, he is accumulating resources to help make life multiplanetary. What do you think? Space or healthcare?
Both is good.
On the Starship front, another engine was swapped from SN11. Raptor number 46 was installed at night and will need another static fire to be deemed flight-worthy. SN11 will probably not fly this week, but rather next week. Raptor engines seem to have been the cause of a lot of delays lately, and it is tempting to think their development might have been too much to chew, even for SpaceX. But always keep in mind that the general public was never allowed to see rocket engines this early in the development phase. Countless Merlin engines exploded on the test stand before reliably powering the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. As serial number increase, we should see fewer engine swaps. The next prototype, SN15, is almost finished. It will feature a new optimized thrust puck to attach the engines to. Amongst many other little changes, I noted the crane attachment points to lift the Starship on the launch stand are now recessed into the nose cone. This is necessary for orbital re-entry to protect them under the heat tiles. This is another sign that an orbital flight test is getting closer, as Musk said the goal is still early July this year. Starlink 6 lifted off as usual from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It was the 6th successful flight and landing of the B-1060 first stage booster and the 78th successful landing of a Falcon 9 first stage. The 100th mark is getting closer. All these successful recoveries mean the team no longer focuses on building new engines and boosters, therefore allowing SpaceX to turn towards Starship and Raptor production. All 60 satellites were deployed successfully to their delivery orbit and will reach our final position in the following weeks. The fairings of this flight flew less than a year ago and were recovered in water by SpaceX's new ship, the Shelia Bordelon. By the way, if that was really useful what I just shared with you, then I would really love it if you could give this video a like. Just click the like button and thank you very much. NASA and SpaceX have reached an agreement to extend orbital data of their respective satellites in order to predict potential collision hazards. The agreement states that whenever a risk arises, SpaceX has to move its satellites to evade impact. This seemingly unbalanced situation takes into consideration the fact that SpaceX runs a lot more satellites than NASA, and that the Starlink satellites are far more maneuverable. Active satellites and space debris are rapidly growing around our planet, increasing the chance of collision, which in turn generates more debris. According to this document published by ESA and the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, since 1957 more than 550 fragmentation events have occurred in space. A fragmentation event usually produces a lot of debris in various sizes. In the early years, it was mostly upper stages tanks blowing up after a few years in space due to residual pressure and heat stress. New regulations will act towards reducing this number. However, with space traffic increasing, in-space collisions are bound to rise in the future. Farther away, the Mars Express team published results about water presence in the Martian atmosphere. The ESA probe is analyzing the concentrations of water relative to altitude and localization on the planet since 2004. During the 8 Martian years, it has been observed that dust storms bring water to higher altitude, therefore accelerating water loss to space. However, the current water loss rate is equivalent to a 2-meter deep layer around the planet missing every billion years, which is insufficient to explain where all of Mars' water has gone. The ancient amount of water is believed to have reached between 100 and 1500 meters deep, and a new study published in Science last week proposed a new explanation to where all that water must have gone. The new model suggests most of it probably got sequestrated into rocks, chemically bonding H2O molecules to minerals like salts, therefore irreversibly drying out the planet. On the surface, since 2018, Mars Insight has been sending us data for more than a Martian year now. We all know of the successful seismometer, of the lesser successful drill, but did you know there was a third major experiment on board? Using radio science techniques, the probe's precise location in the solar system is calculated regularly. Mars Insight being landed on the ground, it isn't moving relative to the Martian surface. Therefore, scientists can track Mars movement, and they found that, like the Earth, Mars is wobbling around its axis. Mars' liquid core size has been determined to be ranging from 1810 to 1860 kilometers, that's 1120 to 1160 miles. The seismometer's data suggests there could be 2 or 3 layers between the crust and the core. The rover Perseverance used its robotic arm to touch the Martian ground for the first time on Sol 28. Then, the debris shield protecting the Ingenuity helicopter was dropped, and the rover has then made a 2-day trip back to the helipad near the touchdown site. If all goes well, Ingenuity will then be deployed just as the rehearsals on Earth, and after a few tests should be able to accomplish the first flight on another planet. This historic event might happen in only 2 weeks, by April the 8th, but it is subject to change. And the old Curiosity rover encountered shell-like rock finely eroded by the wind. Also, during an evening photo session, the rover managed to take a portrait of the moon Phobos among the clouds. Using the Earthbound Atacama Large Millimeter Array in North Chile, scientists have been able to track down the winds in the upper atmosphere of Jupiter. The results were not surprising over the equator, but what they found at the poles baffled them. Around the pole, winds can reach up to 400 meters per second or 900 miles per hour. Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, or JUICE, set to launch next year, will be able to give us even more detail on this intriguing characteristic. Our tour of the solar system now takes us to Titan, the biggest moon of Saturn. Scientists believe in 2012 there's a crust made of water ice deep beneath the surface. Recently, a team modeled some of the biggest impact craters on the surface and concluded that it was probably large enough to have reached the ice and melted, thus temporarily creating a liquid water ocean, or said otherwise, the perfect conditions for life. This crater might become a primary target for NASA's Firefly mission set to launch in 2027 towards Saturn. And farther away, the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration, which produced the first ever image of a black hole, has revealed a new view of the massive object in the center of the M87 galaxy, detailing how it looks in polarized light, adding a few details to their previous image. And that concludes this week's Space Report. I hope you liked it, but feel free to give me your feedback anyways in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified of the next video. This is Getting to Space, signing off.